The first thing that happens to your brain on caffeine is that it makes you feel more alert because caffeine blocks a chemical in your brain called adenosine. Adenosine is a neurotransmitter that makes you feel tired, and it increases in your body the more tired you get. So when you drink coffee, the caffeine blocks adenosine, which makes you feel more alert. However, this is not the only effect that caffeine has on your brain. In fact, there are 10 things that happen to your brain on caffeine, some good and some bad. So today, we're going to talk about what happens to your brain on caffeine and the ugly truth about it that nobody really tells you. Let's start with number 1. You might have heard that drinking coffee can help you to burn fat because caffeine stimulates the noradrenaline in your body. This hormone helps to mobilize the fat cells, which then release the free fatty acids into your bloodstream, which then can be used as energy by your body. Not only does this help you to burn more calories, but it also reduces your appetite, which then leads to consuming less food and therefore losing weight. However, there is a huge problem with this, which I'm going to tell you about right now. You see, people who drink coffee for this purpose often end up developing something called a caffeine tolerance. This means that they need more and more coffee every day just to achieve the same effect of burning fat. Otherwise, they will start gaining weight again. But why do they gain weight? Well, it's because when you develop a tolerance to caffeine, your body starts producing more adenosine receptors. This means that you need more caffeine to block those receptors and feel the desired effect. Now, when you stop drinking coffee or reduce the amount of coffee you drink, those adenosine receptors become overstimulated by the lack of caffeine, which causes a rebound effect. And guess what happens during this rebound effect? You guessed it right, you gain weight. Let me ask you a question. Did you know that caffeine has a half-life of 5 to 7 hours? This means that after 5 to 7 hours, half of the caffeine you drank is still present in your system. After another 5 to 7 hours, half of the remaining caffeine is eliminated from your system and so on. So if you drink a cup of coffee at 10 a.m., there will be caffeine in your system at 3 p.m. when you want to sleep. And that's the reason why coffee can keep you up at night if you drink it too early in the day. However, the interesting thing is that everyone metabolizes caffeine differently. For example, if you drink a cup of coffee at 10 a.m., it will take between 4 and 6 hours for all the caffeine to be eliminated from an average person as system. But it can take up to 9 hours for an older person and up to 12 hours for a pregnant woman. What does this mean for you? Well, let's say you want to sleep at 10 p.m. If you drink coffee before 2 p.m., there will still be caffeine in your system, keeping you up. However, if you drink coffee after 2 p.m., it will be completely out of your system by the time you want to sleep. Number 3. Drinking coffee or caffeinated drinks can make you feel happy because caffeine increases the production of dopamine in your brain. Dopamine is a neurotransmitter that makes you feel pleasure and happiness. In fact, scientists believe that caffeine affects the reward circuit in your brain, which then releases dopamine. Now, caffeine also increases the production of other hormones like serotonin, which also makes you feel happy. Now, some people drink coffee for this very reason because it gives them a boost of energy and motivation to tackle their work and studies. However, this can become a problem if you start feeling dependent on caffeine for happiness. Some people are so dependent on caffeine that they cannot function without it. They literally cannot start their morning until they have had their cup of coffee. If you are one of these people, you should definitely try to reduce your caffeine intake because it is not healthy for you. Next, let's talk about the negative effects of caffeine on your brain. The first thing I want to mention here is that caffeine is considered a mild stimulant. This means that it can increase your heart rate and blood pressure, which can be dangerous for people with heart problems. It can also cause anxiety and nervousness, which can be problematic for people with anxiety disorders. On top of that, it can disrupt your sleep, which can lead to insomnia. And finally, it can interfere with certain medications, which can cause serious side effects. Now, even though caffeine is safe for most people when consumed in moderation, it is important to know how much is too much. So here are some guidelines from experts. According to experts, adults should limit their caffeine intake to 400 milligrams per day. That's about the amount of caffeine in 4 cups of brewed coffee, 10 cans of Coke, or 2.5 cups of tea. However, it is important to note that caffeine can be found in many other sources, such as energy drinks, some medications, and even some foods like chocolate. Therefore, it is important to read the labels of all the products you consume to make sure that you are not taking in more than 400 milligrams of caffeine per day. If you have any concerns about your caffeine intake, it is always best to talk to your doctor. Now let's talk about the next negative effect of caffeine on your brain. Next, let's talk about the next negative effect of caffeine on your brain. One of the big problems with drinking too much coffee is that it can cause dehydration. This is because caffeine has a diuretic effect, which means that it increases urine production, which can lead to dehydration if you don't replace the fluids you lose by drinking water. Dehydration can cause a number of problems, including headaches, fatigue, constipation, and even kidney stones. One way to prevent dehydration while drinking coffee is to drink plenty of water throughout the day. The amount of water you need depends on a number of factors, including your activity level and the climate you live in. However, a general rule of thumb is to drink 8 glasses of water per day. In addition, you may want to avoid drinking coffee on an empty stomach, as this can make it more likely that you will feel nauseous and vomit. Number 6. Caffeine can affect your sleep quality. This is because caffeine has a half-life of 5 to 7 hours, which means that it can still be in your system, keeping you up after 5 to 7 hours of consumption. For example, if you drink a cup of coffee at 8 p.m., there will still be caffeine in your system, keeping you up by the time you want to sleep at midnight. This can lead to difficulty falling asleep, frequent awakenings during the night, and reduced sleep duration. Now, this can be a big problem because sleep is essential for brain health. In fact, sleep deprivation has been linked to a number of cognitive impairments, including difficulty concentrating, memory problems, and impaired decision-making. Now, sleep deprivation has also been linked to an increased risk of developing mental health problems, such as depression and anxiety. Therefore, it is important to avoid drinking coffee too close to bedtime to ensure a good night's sleep. Next, let's talk about the next negative effect of caffeine on your brain. Number 7. You might have heard that drinking coffee can improve your athletic performance. This is because caffeine stimulates the central nervous system, which can lead to increased alertness, focus, and energy. This can help you to work out harder and for longer periods of time. However, it is important to note that the effects of caffeine on athletic performance vary from person to person, and some people may not experience any improvement at all. Additionally, caffeine can cause dehydration, which can negatively impact athletic performance. Therefore, it is important to stay hydrated when consuming caffeine, especially during exercise. Number 8. Caffeine can interfere with the absorption of certain nutrients, such as iron and zinc. This can lead to deficiencies in these nutrients, which can cause a number of problems. For example, iron deficiency can lead to anemia, which is a condition characterized by a lack of red blood cells, or hemoglobin. Zinc deficiency can lead to a weakened immune system, delayed wound healing, and hair loss. Therefore, it is important to be aware of the potential effects of caffeine on nutrient absorption and to take steps to prevent any deficiencies. One way to do this is to consume a balanced diet that includes a variety of nutrient-rich foods. In addition, you can consider taking a multivitamin to ensure that you are getting all the essential nutrients you need. Number 9. Caffeine is addictive. Yes, you heard that right. Caffeine is considered a mild drug, and it is highly addictive. When you drink coffee, the caffeine enters your bloodstream and travels to your brain, where it stimulates the release of dopamine, a neurotransmitter that makes you feel pleasure and happiness. Over time, your body develops a tolerance to caffeine, which means that you need more and more coffee to get the same effect. When you stop drinking coffee, or reduce the amount of coffee you drink, you may experience withdrawal symptoms, such as headaches, fatigue, and irritability. This is because your body has become dependent on caffeine to function properly. Now finally, let's talk about the last negative effect of caffeine on your brain. Number 10. Caffeine can cause an increase in blood sugar levels. This is because caffeine stimulates the release of glucose from the liver, which is then converted to energy by the body. This can lead to insulin resistance, which is a condition in which the body does not use insulin effectively, which then leads to high blood sugar levels. Insulin resistance is a major risk factor for developing type 2 diabetes, which is a disease characterized by high blood sugar levels. Therefore, it is important to be aware of the potential effects of caffeine on blood sugar levels and to monitor your blood sugar levels regularly, especially if you have diabetes or pre-diabetes. Now, if you want to learn about the benefits of quitting coffee, then check out this video here.